Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to this morning's webinar. My name is Tom McDermott, and I'm the chair of the Project Managers Society. We have had a lot of interest in this morning's presentation, with over 90 signing up. It would be good to know where people are joining us from. So while we are waiting, please enter your name, organisation, and where you are located in the chat box, please. Questions for the presenters can be raised by you in the Q&A section only. Please, if you just stick to the Q&A section, that'll be appreciated. Please provide your name and your organisation along with your query. The PM Society currently have 6 members from various engineering disciplines, and we are always interested in meeting and getting to know new members and welcome them to the Society. Engineer Ireland welcomes new members, and details for joining can be found on the website, or anyone in Engineers Ireland would be delighted to answer any of the questions you may have. If you are a member and would like to receive notifications of the PM events, just tick on the box on your membership page to the Project Manager Society. Presentations are held on average on a monthly basis. Details are available on the events page on the Engineers website. Events are made up of breakfast events, evening events, lunchtime events, and in non-COVID times, we include some site visits. So we're beginning to start site visits again. We welcome your feedback on events, any suggested topics for future events. So if you have any suggestions, perhaps add this to the chat as the presentation takes place also. Our next 2 events, we're coming to the end of our term. So our next 2 events are on the 26th of this month, a lunchtime event, how project management can drive sustainable projects, and online discussion. So that'll be very interesting. And then to wrap up the year on the 1st of June, the PM Society AGM. So the end of year report and a look ahead into the future events for the Society in 2022/2023. So moving to today's event. Firstly, I would like to thank Michael Quille for preparing today's presentation, but also supporting the PM Society. Michael is from EY, Ireland, and today he is going to discuss mobilising and implementing a winning PMO. With a wealth of knowledge and experience from a career spanning the public and private sectors, Michael will give a PMO overview before sharing some interesting case studies and some key learnings. I've seen some of the slides and I really think you will enjoy it. It'll be very good. Now, I would like to hand over to Roderick Cleary, who organised this event for the PM Society. Roderick is a relatively new committee member and will introduce the presentation in a little bit more detail. Rod, over to you, please.
Thanks very much, Tom, and good morning, and thank you for the introduction. So, as Tom mentioned, I'm a member of the Engineers Ireland Project Management Society. I'm a project manager with Linesight, having a background in civil and structural engineering. So, a few years ago, I completed a project management diploma with the IPMI. And this is where I first came across the term and the concept of project management office. And as part of that course, I received lectures from Jackie Glynn, who is completing a lot of work in this area, and Pamela Ryan from Bordemona, amongst others. Following the completion of an assignment covering this topic and some exam preparation, I thought, well, okay, this is something that I kind of now relatively understand, and I'll always have it there if I need it. But surprisingly enough, very shortly afterwards, my manager confirmed my organisation at the time had made a decision to implement a PMO. And this is where I met Michael. Michael came into the organisation and worked tirelessly with us, from senior management right down to the engineers and across departments, to successfully set up and implement a PMO. So Michael, like myself, and possibly a lot of others on this call, started his career in the civil engineering field as a geotechnical engineer, prior to progressing into project management and then into the professional services in the project management discipline. So having served with Michael on this PMO in practice and having experienced the challenges involved and seen the benefits, I thought it would be an ideal topic to talk about over breakfast this morning. Now, Michael's presentation does extend on the topic a little, as it is titled Project Management Office to Transformation Management Office, driving sustainable business. So Michael will kindly take us through that in detail. So I'll hand you over to Michael, who will talk through his presentation, after which he and I will gladly field questions that you may have. Now, don't ask us any tricky ones like who's going to win the Champions League or the All-Ireland or something. But yeah, well, not at this hour of the morning. So for now, thank you, and over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Rod. I think Liverpool, Limerick, and probably Kerry for those. So it is. But firstly, I'd like to thank Engineers Ireland, the Project Management Society, Tom, Rod, and Maureen for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. And indeed, I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone on the call for tuning in, and hope it's sunny where you are. As Rod mentioned, my presentation this morning is entitled PMO to Transformation Management Office, Driving Sustainable Business. I will start with a brief introduction. I am an Associate Director with EY Strategy and Transactions, predominantly working across the sustainability space. At EY, we are committed to making business work for sustainability and making sustainability work for business. I've been extremely lucky to be involved in a number of high-profile change management, transformation, operational excellence, and PMO initiatives for a range of diverse clients across both the private and public sector in healthcare, renewable energy, utilities, and now the sustainability space. As Rod mentioned, I'm very proud to be a civil engineer by trade with a master's in geotechnical engineering, and this has been a really strong foundation for me to undertake additional studies and to take up varied roles over the years as I made my move into strategy consulting. Working against a very tight time frame this morning, I plan on briefly taking you through why PMOs are important, some implementation considerations, and what a good step-by-step mobilization process looks like. Secondly, I would like to speak to what mega trends and driving forces of change that we at EY are seeing in the marketplace, and how these headwinds are putting new pressures and indeed resulting in new opportunities for project managers and the PMO use case. Thirdly, within the realms of client confidentiality, I will discuss 2 case studies. I will then summarize with some key walkaways from the presentation. And as Rod mentioned, we'll finish with the obligatory Q&A session. So to begin with, PMO, an overview. Simply put, a project management office, or PMO, is a project management governance structure that is set up within an organization to support the needs of senior management for government decision making, and ultimately to ensure the successful and timely delivery of projects or programs. As we are all aware, effective project management techniques and good governance structures, processes, and procedures, when planned and implemented correctly, can have many benefits for an organization, including increased project visibility, improved project selection and optimization, improved capital allocation, and more effective budget utilization, and generally a more efficient use of resources through effective planning and reporting. As the PMO maturity increases in an organization over time, some longer term downstream benefits that we are seeing include lower spending, more agile responses to strategic projects, and this can be seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, and generally a higher return on investments for those projects and businesses that have a fully functioning and relevant project management structure. And in general terms, the more control and authority the project management office is given, the more value it will ultimately add. And the choice of role for the PMO is typically set by the program manager or program director, and is depending on the business requirements. In very broad terms, the high-level aim of any project management office should be to minimize the proportion of admin activity and maximize the proportion of program coordination and control. To this end, some key PMO functions are outlined to the right of this slide, and I won't go through them all in detail, but they vary from resource management functions, where we, as good project managers, spot resource hotspots from plans and forward planning, to stakeholder or governance control to manage critical decision points and ensure that the PMO is feeding the program leadership with the right bullet points and information, to financial management, where the project managers working in the PMO are aggregating the program budget, challenging the numbers and aligning numbers to work packages, to risk and issue management, where the PMO ensures that there is a strong, proactive risk management across the organizations and actions are driven based on key risks. Before we move on to the steps required to mobilize a winning PMO, organizations should and must take a step back and consider, okay, we know all the benefits that a PMO and project management governance can bring to an organization, but if implemented, what will be the ultimate role of the PMO in our business? And what really should the mission and vision of the PMO be for us? Is the PMO solely going to be a clearinghouse to track deliverables or manage reporting? Or is it going to act as a coordinator to facilitate communication and manage change control? Or, as we mentioned previously, will the PMO be given more control and authority to act almost like a pace setter within the organization to drive programs, transform business, and create momentum? Other sit-back considerations include budget available, PMO staffing levels, skills required, and size. And as you will appreciate, a one size does not fit all, as the resourcing and PMO requirements will change over time as the function matures and evolves within the organization. And I'll touch off this point again in the following slides. So in terms of the practical steps required and questions that an organization should ask itself when setting up a winning PMO, at EY, we have a tried and trusted 6-stage process for the mobilization and implementation of a PMO, as outlined in the diagram, with some key activities identified under each stage. The first 3 phases comprise discovery, needs assessment, and design, while the remaining 2, the delivery and sustain stage, are post-mobilization stage, and I will cover the grow and mature process in more detail in the next slide. Firstly, as previously alluded to, when setting up a PMO, a business must really look inwards and ask, what do we want to achieve by standing up a PMO? What areas are in scope? What areas are out of scope? And what are the likely significant benefits? Secondly, as part of the needs assessment and diagnose stage, you need to ask yourself and determine, what are the existing services and project management capabilities in my organization? How will the PMO complement these? What are the overall business requirements and how do they align with the PMO objectives? What are the critical success factors for the PMO going to be? How are we going to monitor the PMO? What is the quality criteria going to be? Thirdly, to design and build a solution, the business needs to conduct a realistic needs assessment to stand up a PMO and to determine what will be done where, by whom, and how will they do it? What processes, skills, technologies, training will be needed to effectively run the PMO? And how will these be implemented and monitored? During the delivery phase, when the PMO is operational and up and running, key questions and challenges that the business should ask include, do the processes actually work in practices? What have we set up here? It may sound like a silly question, but do people know what they're doing? And do they have the right skills to do it? Does the technology work? Are there additional enhancements needed in the solution? The key is not to be complacent and always question. When scaling up and running the PMO, an organization needs to loop back around and continually ask again, has the business case been achieved? What further improvements are required to meet the stakeholders' needs? How can we grow the office further to support the business? Are the senior leadership happy with the PMO? Are our employees engaged with the PMO? And finally, for the maturing and expanding stage, which I will deal with in greater detail in the next slide, some key questions that should be asked include, how can the PMO better enable the business to achieve its strategic goals going forward? Can we integrate and manage other portfolios to increase information sharing, visibility, and alignment? As mentioned, a one size does not fit all, and therefore a number of cycles of design loops of design, deliver, and sustain may be needed to embed and promote a winning PMO. In very broad terms, the identify, diagnose, and design stage can take anywhere between 1 and 4 months, while the delivery and sustain phase are typically between a 1 to 3 month period, and the mature and expand phase can occur any time after 6 months plus. But again, this is depending on the size and complexity of an organization. And just to reiterate, a one size does not fit all. So when discussing PMO maturity, it's important to point out that in most instances, the PMO maturity level transforms over time as it gains credibility within the organization and as it increases its workload and interaction with the different business units and functions. The build process is typically incremental in nature, and initially when setting up a PMO, it's hugely important to gain stakeholder credibility and achieve some early quick wins, and set up a PMO that is proactive in nature, something that is value add with the ability to highlight concerns and issues to the senior management team and promote the office as a hub or an engine room. Over time, the PMO typically evolves in line with the steps outlined, that being from a project office to a basic PMO with various functions, to an advanced PMO with additional functions, to an enterprise or center of excellence project management to provide more value add functions and governance processes. Interestingly, what we are seeing in the marketplace today is that PMOs are further evolving and changing to transformation management offices as new pressures, such as how sustainability impacts business, are putting new strains and resulting in new opportunities for project managers and the PMO use case. In very broad terms, a transformation management function, or TMO, is a function responsible for driving complex initiatives on both an operational and strategic level, and is the critical link between the executive vision and the work of the business. Some companies call this function a strategic implementation office, but regardless of the name, one element that sets a TMO apart from most PMOs is that the C-suite proactively supports the TMO's mandate to transform the organization, which ensures it has the highest priority when implementing and affecting change. In essence, TMOs are all about bringing strategy to life. Over the next number of slides, I will briefly present some emerging and ever-present mega trends that we are seeing in the marketplace that is driving business to rethink the structure and purpose of their PMOs and forcing them to evolve into transformation management offices. As we are all aware, there are numerous business pressures and mega trends across technology, environment, and the drive towards a sustainable future, along with various hard-hitting geopolitical and societal changes impacting how business operate. For example, as the metaverse emerges and artificial intelligence and virtual reality become more prevailing, and indeed along with a greater uptake in digital assets and cryptocurrencies, companies need to adjust their business model in line with how customers expect to engage and interact with it. Companies are also transforming to consider how to engage with Generation Z, as well as ramping up go-to-market strategies that consider the silver economy. And getting the right balance between the trust economy and increased transparency is also critical, as we as consumers demand more flexible and hyper-personalized products and services. Ways of working have changed considerably, as we are all aware from the impact of COVID-19, but also we're seeing the rise of the gig economy. And as new skills, jobs, and industries emerge, companies must consider partnerships with organizations that participates and lead in gig and cobot economies. As ever, the rise of technology, AI, platform thinking, integrated robotics, and real-time data generated from connected devices are forcing companies to transform and adopt their business model and outlooks. And climate change, which is one of the key mega trends that is impacting each and every business. Companies across the world are quickly adapting and transforming their internal processes, policies, and tweaking products and services to align with customers' environmental, social, and corporate governance values. As we are all aware, climate change poses a major risk for us all in terms of resources, the price of energy, food shortages, and general harm and societal unrest from pollution, extreme weather, and natural disasters. For companies, the major forces at play include consumer and investor demand for green and smarter energy, technological developments to tackle the transition, a workforce with an increasing desire and demand for purpose, which is often linked to ESG factors. Also, increased regulation at global, European, and national level is driving change and forcing organizations to adapt and develop proactive low carbon strategies. This can be seen through the Paris Agreement, EU Green Deal, and Ireland's recent climate action plan. The big question is, how are companies structuring their internal ambitions, processes, and operations to respond to these big mega trends at play? One option that we're seeing in the marketplace as a direct result of firstly the COVID-19 pandemic and secondly the transformation required to drive sustainable change is that PMOs are being forced and molded to further evolve and transform into transformation management offices to enable change through strategic alignment and driving implementation through effective project management. These offices are closely linked to the overall strategies and business models proposed by the senior leadership, and we at EY Sustainability are seeing and indeed promoting TMOs as a key change office and tool for companies to drive their carbon reduction strategies as we strive towards our 2050 targets to reach net zero. To summarize the structure outlined to the right, TMOs differ from PMOs in that a transformation management office's scope is bigger than a normal PMO and it's constructed differently. The TMO interacts with the transformation or company steering board on a regular basis and serves as a direct link to the company's senior executives. In a normal PMO, you might begin with a project charter, whereas in a TMO, we actually start with a leadership alignment workshop. The TMO's remit is broader in that it's more about looking at all of the headwinds and megatrends facing an organization and understanding those challenges and bringing strategy and change to life through one governance and implementation channel. The functions and elements shown under each of the strategic alignment, transformation, management, and strategy are purely illustrative, but give you an idea about what elements and what functions typically fall under each bucket. We at EY have recently helped a prominent or global organization set up a dedicated TMO. This organization was undertaking multiple complex initiatives, but none were aligned to an overall strategy. And we talked to the client's leadership and board and structured all these programs under one banner and developed an overall TMO governance and framework with the core aim to transform the company into a sustainable first and customer-centric organization. For the next section, I plan to briefly talk to two case studies within the realm of client confidentiality, of course, and highlight what aspects of the PMO mobilization, implementation, and transformation went well, and what aspects didn't go so well. Case study one is all about establishing a project management office. In this instance, the entity was a public body whose business model was extremely challenged as a result of the decarbonisation agenda, and the PMO was established to manage a large number of strategic projects and programs. This organization also had the added pressure in that it didn't have a core project management capability in-house and historically did not deliver projects effectively. So it was starting from a really low capability base. Therefore, it established a project office initially and built up the maturity of the office and personnel over time based on the core PMO principles of project management excellence, operational excellence, organizational development, and their response to decarbonisation agenda. Things that were done well, and these will be different from every organisation, but the entity in question backed and built the PMO step by step, and throughout the entire journey was strongly supported by the CEO and board. The PMO manager sat on the leadership team and reported weekly at the senior leadership forum. In addition, the organisation in question championed its people development strategy through the PMO by giving its employees the opportunity to upskill again to gain PMI, PMBOK, Prince 2, Lean, Green Belt accreditation. And they actually recognised and celebrated this. Each quarter, they had an event at the local hotel whereby everybody came together and had lunch. It also communicated very effectively through a SharePoint site and had regular town halls. For those lessons learned that didn't work so well, the company tried to incorporate a project portfolio management solution, so that's an online IT solution, into the business, but it wasn't the right time in that. The organization wasn't at the correct maturity level, and the resourcing and internal ambition by the staff wasn't really there to fully embrace and utilize it. Also, they struggled to instill the concept of benefits realization into their model. And indeed, they struggled with resourcing to keep on top of the project management tooling and toolkit updates. Since they were starting from a very low maturity PM level, there was quite a number of iterations and up issues to document procedures and templates, and they really struggled to keep on top of this and to be proactive delivering updates. So in contrast, case study 2 is all about transformation management offices. So in this instance, the entity was a global utilities company who was required to transform its entire global operations as a result of increasing headwinds in terms of reduced renewable energy subsidies and changing government policy and regulatory pressures. Interestingly, unlike in the previous example, this organization had too many processes, procedures, governance frameworks, and templates in place, which resulted in increased costs and delayed decision making. For example, we counted that it had somewhere in the region of 628 templates that were required to be populated, documented, reviewed, and filed throughout the life cycle of a project. The company grew very quickly over a decade, and the global leadership team had felt that the organization had lost some of its entrepreneurial freewheeling spirit and was bogged down by too many complex and unnecessary organizational structures, practices, and processes. Therefore, the leadership team undertook a global Fit for the Future program, which was managed by a central TMO with regional transformation management offices to lead work streams at the required level. The key principles were company reorganization, improved technology use, new business strategy, lean procurement, and improved people and values. In terms of what worked well, they took every existing process and procedure and analyzed it and turned it inside out from the perspective of value add to the end customer by adding questions such as, how do customers perceive this? Does this template add value? Is this process internally beneficial? How is this impacting our bottom line? What would the risk rating be if this process or template or step were removed? In addition, unlike the previous example, and given the scale of the transformation, a bespoke online PPM solution was built in, and all project managers across the world were trained and required to utilize the platform as a single source of truth. And this was a necessary tool for reporting and status updates across different time zones. There was also a great opportunity for upskilling, which was promoted by the organization, and they really championed lean and process training, etc. Interestingly, what didn't work well was that they were overambitious with their timelines for the overall program, which resulted in somewhat in the lack of credibility and broken promises. Also, they underestimated employee input and time required in workshops to streamline the existing processes and procedures, and this put pressure on business as usual activities and generally put undue stress on the workforce. Although it did take longer to transform than initially thought, the change initiative was hugely successful in the end, and the company has since gone from strength to strength, but lots of learning were derived. It's important to recognize, as I'm sure that you all do, that projects have a limited time frame in that they almost get stale over time, and you lose credibility and momentum if they drag out and if you're regularly apologizing for scope and time creep. So you need to plan it correctly at the start. Just to wrap up with a summary of some key walkaway points. For those of you that are considering implementing and mobilizing a PMO, you need to ask yourself, do we actually need a project management office? Have we enough work for a PMO? And ultimately, do we need to change our organization and our ways of working? If so, what is the best and most economic solution? Can you or should you buy in this service as a managed service, or have you the in-house skills and capabilities to deliver? Based on your current thinking and budgets, can you afford it? Have you got the resources, internal ambition, and executive support to deliver this process over a given time period? Also, be acutely aware that you will more than likely experience some challenges and kickback from your staff and colleagues, as at the end of the day, mobilizing and implementing a PMO is a change management process. You will hear all the gripes like, we've done this before and it didn't work, to I don't have time to fill out silly templates and it's just another reporting function that's going to add to my day. For those of you with operational PMOs, I urge you to take time to do a stock check and health review of your existing operations. The PMO structure is complex and there are many elements that are essential to success, which can get stale over time. How many of us have standing agendas that are rarely followed? A status report template where the risk status or key risks haven't changed considerably over the last number of reporting periods? Or are you the one frantically scurrying and ringing around last thing on a Friday afternoon looking for a weekly status update for a work stream or program? But it's not all about tools and templates. You need to consider the wider essentials to success, from effective communication of your PMO to people skills and development, to change management, to digitalization, to data management, to constantly updating roles and responsibilities. All of these elements need to be continually reviewed and refreshed and need to work in parallel with one another to ensure a winning PMO. And for everyone on this call this morning, I would encourage you to champion a transformational mindset within your own business or organization, to use your project management skills and to elevate your existing project management structures and capabilities to transform your organization to be relevant to our future world. Ask yourself, what are the key disruptors in your business and how are you responding to these? Is your structure appropriate to weather future mega trends? What are you doing in your business to innovate? Are you prepared for the cyber risks of tomorrow? And what, most importantly, are you doing in your organization to tackle climate change and to put Ireland on a more sustainable path, to cut emissions, to create a cleaner, greener economy and society, and protect us all from the devastating consequences of climate change? Thank you for your patience and time. I'm going to pause now for some questions.
Enjoyed that. I suppose the key takeaway, there's many there, but I suppose if you're really interested in looking into this, it's a health check of the business, isn't it? Where are you now? Where's the business now, and carrying that health check. But you know, the PMO, it's no longer a supporting service. Now it's a key function within a business, isn't it, Michael? It's essential.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's driving strategy and it's driving change, and it's a real tool within an organization to be utilized. And we as project managers have the skills to drive out and deliver on complex strategic initiatives.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks for that, Michael. So just to wrap up, guys, and like any good project managers, we're going to hand back a little bit of time here and or finish before time and hand back time. So thank you all for attending today's webinar.